All right. So, listen, um, as far as college football goes, this was one of the best days of college football that I've ever witnessed. It was tremendous. The Ohio State Michigan game in the snow was fantastic. The Auburn Alabama game was just
Yeah, that was
ridiculous.
great. Yeah.
You couldn't
Yeah.
believe.
Bryce Young for Alabama, I mean, he made pressure throw after pressure. I mean, like third downs where you got to have it. I mean, and he was right on the money with a lot of those throws. That was,
Yeah, and then at night, Oklahoma and Oklahoma State. That was a fantastic games. These games had great atmospheres. It was so much fun. It really was. So let's just a couple of things I want to go through. So I'm happy for Michigan. I really am. I'm happy for Harbaugh that they pulled that one out. Harbaugh's been getting ripped for 5, 6 years now for not beating Ohio State, and they pulled it off. So I don't know how much of the game you saw, but
yeah. I mean, it's, again, you look at the score 42-27. It's like, whoa. I mean, granted, it was a one score game, and then, Michigan just ran the ball down their throat to end the game. They've got another rushing touchdown. So, yeah, I mean, good for him. I mean, they got to go. Don't get too crazy. You got to go beat Iowa if you want to get into the college football playoff. And then at that point, it's kind of like, look, if you beat Ohio State, and if you get into the college football playoff, that probably buys you a year or two of people not bitching and moaning about not winning a national championship or something.
yeah, I
So,
was really impressed. Michigan basically physically pushed them around the whole game. They started from the beginning and just absolutely hammered them. And Michigan, on not only on offense but on defense, they were playing a lot of those receivers man to man, one on one, and sending guys to the quarterback. And they did a hell of a job. I mean, for the most part, barring some crazy catches that Ohio State made on some fourth downs. I mean, that game, Ohio State was lucky that game was even close, because Michigan didn't made some mistakes early in the game that they could have, they separated themselves in that game anyway. But so that was eye opening. I couldn't believe
yeah.
that after everything, all the games Ohio State's been through, that they got,
I mean,
pushed.
and Michigan. I mean, we'll go into the playoff implications, but it's basically like Michigan wins, they beat Iowa in the Big Ten championship. They're in. I don't
Right,
know what they'll be ranked, but they'll be somewhere 2 through 4.
right, yeah, yeah. And then the Auburn Alabama game. I mean, listen, I gotta.
I mean, they were dead to rights. I
I
mean,
gotta
it was.
Yeah, I mean, I have to give Auburn credit. Auburn's defense was tremendous. They were all over them the whole game. Like, they did not allow them to run the ball. They were all over the receivers. They were all over the quarterback. Even when Alabama protected a little bit, they still managed to get there and make it incredibly difficult. And Auburn's
Yeah,
playing with their backup quarterback, who this is his second game, and he sprains his ankle, so he basically can't move.
yeah,
So, I mean, the fact that they had a 10-0 lead halfway through the fourth quarter is just, it was unbelievable. So yeah, I think it kind of
so
should.
the other thing that we should point out, like, let's not forget this, because Alabama's got to go play Georgia. Um, Alabama's kind of struggled all year, and in that game, remember, they had the ball and they tried to drive down. They couldn't. They got to fourth down. They had to punt it, and then Auburn's trying to run out the clock, and one of their guys runs out of bounds. Now, even if he hadn't run out of bounds, because they ended up stopping him on third down, they would have had less time. They might not have been able to had enough time to get down the field.
Nope.
Again, I don't want to take anything away from Bryce Young, because I mean, he was making, pressure throws where it's like the season's on the line here, third down, you got to make this happen. And he's trying to avoid rushers and stuff. And he just made great throw after like throws that were just perfect on the money, on time. So I got to give them a lot of credit, but it's kind of like they're going to play Georgia, and it's like, oh, they beat Auburn. Yeah, but, like you said, Auburn, they're playing with their backup quarterback, and Alabama's been struggling all year, and they were behind like 10-0 late in the game. So doesn't really bode well for, their chances against Georgia.
Yeah, no, and listen, just to lodge a complaint. I figured this out recently, and I thought of this a little while ago that Paul Feinbaum, right? He does he's on ESPN a lot, and he does a radio show in Alabama. I think Paul Feinbaum is the Skip Bayless of college football because everything is a complaint. Nobody's ever good enough. Okay, he's been saying for 5 years Harbaugh is not capable of beating Ohio State. He's been ripping Harbaugh a new one, even though Michigan wins 9 to 10 games a year. It's ridiculous. And then finally Michigan comes in, pounds Ohio State. And then Auburn, almost wins this game. Yeah, it's disappointing that they lost, but Jesus, Auburn has a first-year coach. Their quarterback broke his ankle, so they don't have their quarterback. If they have Bo Nix in that game, they blow Alabama out. That game isn't even close. So, and then Feinbaum comes out and says, Auburn blew it. They blew the Iron Bowl. They should have won that game. Yes, they should have won the game, okay? But let's slow down on this is a crisis. They played Alabama without their quarterback and basically no offense and almost beat them. Like, it took 4 overtimes for Alabama to beat them. So it's absolutely ridiculous that people are like, and I read a tweet from Danny Cannell today. Oh, look at all these 6-6 and 7-5 teams in the SEC. Okay, I'm here to tell you, Auburn's defense is better than any defense Cincinnati has played this year.
Yeah.
It's not even close. So stop complaining. Yeah, they lose games. You know why? Because they're playing SEC teams, for Christ's sake. They're not in these conferences.
I'm ripping on Alabama, but it's like, you got to play LSU. You got to play Ole Miss. You got to play Texas A&M. You got to play, you got to play Auburn. And you're like, well, even if Auburn's not having a good year, it's the Iron Bowl. Like, that is such, like, everybody gets up for that, especially you're going into Auburn to play, So, yeah, like, people should slow down about that.
Yeah, and then the late game, Oklahoma State. That was a tight game, and Oklahoma State's defense basically shut out Oklahoma in the second half.
Yeah.
The only scoring Oklahoma got was from fumbles and mistakes by Oklahoma State. But Oklahoma's offense did nothing the entire second half, no points. So I think it's kind of a statement. I think it's kind of cool that the Big 12 is not quite the same as it used to be. I think there actually is some kind of defense being played, which is kind of cool. So yeah, and that was a great game. So anyway, this is my overall point about college football. So this year has been crazy. We can't figure out who the best team is. We know Georgia's good.
Georgia seems to be better than everybody else, but it's, the other teams, it's kind of,
Right. So it's been all over the place. Like the past 3, 4, 5 years. Well, basically since they started the playoff in 2014, it's basically been Alabama, Clemson, Ohio State. And those 3 teams are going to be in
Oklahoma, right, or Notre Dame, or
right,
or Oklahoma or Notre Dame, or it's like, yeah, it's the same,
right. And this year is completely different. So basically, my stance has been this whole time is, I don't think Cincinnati's one of the best 4 teams, but I think they can get into the playoff.
Yeah.
And I got to be honest, like when it comes to college football this season, I'm from Missouri. As in, you got to show me.
Okay.
So Alabama, I've seen them get physically pushed around 3-4 times this year. Ohio State got physically dominated by Oregon, physically dominated by Michigan.
Yeah.
So, and here's the thing. Convince me that all these teams, take Georgia out of it, they're in no matter what, right? Georgia's outside this conversation. But take any other team. Tell me why they're not a top 4 team.
I mean,
I'm not asking you to do it. It's rhetorical. I'm just
right. You can include Alabama in that, Cincinnati, Michigan, Notre Dame, Oklahoma State. That's probably it. That's probably the only teams that were like those are like probably the top 6 teams.
Yeah, it's 6 teams basically competing for 4 spots right now. That's basically what it comes down to.
So you want to go through what do we think in terms of how this is going to shake out next week, based on what we think is going to happen in the games?
Right. So it's pretty. You could basically. What I'm saying is, my point is, you could talk me into anything. Like, yeah, Cincinnati doesn't have the resume, but you know what? They're obviously a good team.
Look, Notre Dame's ranked, what are they, 5 now or 6?
They were 6, but they'll probably end up being 5 after this.
Okay, 6 or 5, whatever. So Cincinnati beat them. They have a win over the number 5 ranked. So, that's something. And then if they're playing, is Houston a ranked team?
Yeah.
Okay, so if they beat Houston in their conference championship game, I mean, it's not as good as some of the other resumes out there, but it's pretty good. I guess my question would be with Oklahoma State, because they just beat Oklahoma. If then they go beat Baylor, that's pretty good.
Yeah. So my sense of it is, the Alabama Georgia game is obviously very important to all of this discussion. So we're just gonna, we're going to assume Georgia is going to beat them.
And if Georgia beats Alabama, Alabama's probably out.
Yeah, I don't see how anybody would keep them in the way they've played. They struggled to beat LSU. They really struggled with Auburn with their backup quarterback,
Right.
like I said. So yeah, Alabama has struggled this year, and this is kind of what I was, watching on ESPN. What Jesse Palmer was saying is like, this is how Alabama is this year. Like they struggle in these games. They're really good to pull them out at the end, but they're not, they're nowhere near what they used to be. So I think that. So assuming Alabama loses, then obviously Alabama will be in. Obviously, if Alabama loses to Georgia, Georgia would be number 1. I think Michigan's going to be number 2 when the rankings come out on Tuesday. And if they win, they beat Iowa, they will be in. Cincinnati beats Houston, I think they will be number 3. The question will come down to number 4, Oklahoma State and Notre Dame. Notre Dame is obviously done. They don't have any more games. And from what I've been hearing from all the people on ESPN and different, they seem to believe that Oklahoma State, if they win against Baylor, they'll jump over Notre Dame because they would have.
That's a fair argument. I think they have a better resume.
Right. Well, I think the fact that now we'll see where they are this week, whether they jump over them this week. I think the committee is going to keep Notre Dame at 5, and then when Oklahoma State beats Baylor, that would mean Oklahoma State beat 2 top 10 teams, and they're a conference champion. I think that will vault them ahead of Notre Dame. So yeah, just kind of going through the teams. I mean, to me, everybody's got flaws and everybody's got positives, right? I mean, Notre Dame's a tough team on both sides of the ball, but they're not special at anything. You know, they're just solid. They're good at everything. I mean, Alabama, obviously great offensive talent, but they don't have an incredible defense. The defense is good, not great, and their offensive line is a problem.
Yeah.
People have been able to manhandle them. I mean, if you watch these games from this weekend, I mean, it looked to me like Michigan would give Alabama all they could handle, with their offensive and defensive line. So that would be a problem. Ohio State, they just can't stop the run. Any team that's good at running the football is going to challenge them, but offensively, Ohio State is ridiculous.
Yeah.
Michigan, I mean, they're just dominant. They play. This to me is the Michigan team that plays most like a Harbaugh team. They play exactly like if you watch Jim Harbaugh in San Francisco with the 49ers, this is how they played. They just smacked you around. They made some plays. Their defense wore you out with how relentless they were. Oklahoma State, again, it's kind of a solid team. They play solid defense. Their quarterback can make some plays out of the pocket. Cincinnati is same thing, kind of a good all-around team. They have a good quarterback, pretty good offense, pretty good defense. So anyway, like I'm saying, you could really talk me into anything at this point. But yeah, I think if Oklahoma State wins their next game next week, they should probably get in over Notre Dame.
I think so, and I think that's probably the right decision. But let's play devil's advocate. What if Alabama beats Georgia?
So yeah, then I think I think
both of them get in because Georgia, especially because if Alabama wins, I think it's going to be a close game, and then it's going to be like Georgia beat everybody else. So I don't think, and they only have one loss. I don't see how you can keep them out.
Yeah, then I think the conversation would be, assuming Michigan wins, it would be either Alabama or Michigan. One of them would be number 1. Okay. And then probably the other one that's not number 1 would be number 2. They'd probably put Cincinnati 3, and then they would probably put Georgia in at 4.
Okay.
Or, you never know with that because George.
I think Oklahoma State could jump Cincinnati.
With one, I don't think so. I think if Cincinnati wins, as long as they win their game, they'll be a conference champion and they'll be undefeated. I don't think they're going to make that move at this point. It'd be like putting in Alabama with 2 losses. The amount of screaming from the top of the hills that everybody would do if they did that would be a little bit much. And I think the committee is reasonable, not perfect, but reasonable.
Okay.
Do you think Michigan should be number 2 after that win? Because that's a pretty darn good win.
Yeah, I guess so. Because what is it right now? What are the top 4 right now? It's Georgia.
Well, before the games were played, it was Georgia, Ohio State, Alabama, Cincinnati.
And Michigan was 6th?
5th.
5th. Okay. But you put them above Cincinnati, and then I don't know. I can. I would say they probably put them there. Yeah. Just because that win, I mean, the fact that they dominated them, because Bama won, but it was very difficult. It took them 4 overtimes. So, do you think that Cincinnati would be ranked ahead of Bama in the rankings that come up Tuesday?
Yeah, I do.
Really?
Oh, okay, wait. Well, no, not yet. No, not yet. If they lose to Georgia, I think Cincinnati will be.
No. I'm talking about right now. The rankings they're going to do.
No, I don't think they'll put Cincinnati ahead of Alabama.
Okay.
I think it'll be tempting, but I don't think they'll do that. Okay. But yeah, I'm interested. Honestly, I think the playoff matchups could be fascinating. Like I was looking at it, like if we assume Georgia's going to beat Alabama, right? I mean, it could be Georgia against Oklahoma State, and then Michigan versus Cincinnati.
Yeah.
That could be a lot. It could be a lot of fun. We might not have, the blowouts that we usually have.
Maybe,
Yeah. So,
yeah.
Todd McShay had a tweet that I thought was interesting. He said that if it came down to, even though Ohio State lost, like he said, if it came down to Ohio State and Cincinnati, that Ohio State's a better team.
Which I don't have a problem with that.
Right. I don't have a problem with that. Everybody went crazy, but obviously I don't think ESPN was real thrilled that he put that out there because everybody got everybody into a crazy state about it. But yeah, listen, this is the thing, like to me that I made those point about all these teams. I think like if there's ever a year that needs a 12-team playoff, this is it. Because there's just not none of what's the difference? There's not a big difference between any of these teams. So yeah, I hope that we get it. Apparently they're meeting, the college football commissioners are meeting on December 1st to talk about it. So we'll see. We'll see what happens. I hope we get it sooner than later. The other thing is obviously huge news came out just before we came onto the podcast. So Lincoln Riley is leaving Oklahoma and he is going to USC, which is an earth-shaking type deal. The early returns, I mean, Colin Cowherd thinks this is a grand slam. He thinks he's perfect for USC. I mean, I will say, Lincoln Riley is a young, good-looking guy, has that kind of Los Angeles Cliff Kingsbury type, look. So I think it could work, but USC is one of those schools. If you can recruit, like you can be unbelievable because there's so many players in California. You don't even have to
That's
go.
That's what college football is. If you can recruit, you can be pretty good.
Yeah. So we'll see. I mean, it's a little bit of a leap, but I mean, to me, I think it's kind of looking ahead. Oklahoma's going to the SEC, and you can see watching Oklahoma yesterday, they can't compete with the SEC.
Yeah, why? I mean, I don't want to. We talked about this in probably one of our first podcasts, but why are they going? Why are they going to the SEC? I mean, I just don't. I guess it's just the revenue thing.
Yep, it's got to be. It's got to be. I mean, obviously they're making more money because they're not going to be more competitive, and the best path to the playoff is to win the Pac-12. I mean, If you get, again, we've seen what happens. If USC, Texas, Miami, they get the right coach, it happens quick. So we'll see. I'm excited. I hope that he can get that turned around because we need a Western college football team to be good.
Come to a regional. It's too much in the South. You need a mix of schools to get everybody. And it's like, look, we could have a conversation about should they have started having a playoff or whatever else, and what are we've already gone down this road. So at this point, it is what it is. They need to expand and they need to get more teams into it because what you don't want is to reach, you want to reach December and have several teams feel like we can potentially win the national championship. Most of them probably can't, but so what? At least they feel like they have a shot. Then you can sell people on that, and then you can sell recruits on that. It just, it snowballs into helping you.
It speaks to how poorly run college football is, okay? They come up with a 4-team playoff when there's 5 power conferences. So basically, they came up with this playoff format where one conference would be eliminated every year, at least one.
Yeah.
Like, what dumbasses came up with this? Like, I mean, my goodness. Like, it's so unbelievable. The sticking point is the Big Ten and the Rose Bowl, and that's going to be the issue. So we'll see if they can get that worked out.
What do you mean?
Well, so if we'd have a 12-team playoff, like the Rose Bowl is going to want to assure themselves that they get the Pac-12 versus the Big Ten, and so that it creates a problem. If you have a 12-team playoff, you're not going to be guaranteed that particular Rose Bowl game that they want.
Okay.
So, because obviously it's likely that we're going to have 2-3 Big Ten teams get into that, if that were to happen. So that to me is the sticking point.
Playoff this year, you would have Michigan, Ohio State, and would Michigan State get in there?
It'd be close.
Yeah, it'd be close. So 3 teams, that's probably about right.
Yeah, you'd at least get 2.
Yeah.
And the SEC would probably get 2 or 3, and but I think to me the ACC, the SEC, the Big 12, I think they're all in on a 12-team playoff. I think it's the Big 10 and the Pac-12 that are going to be the challenge.
Yeah.
Anyway, tremendous. I can't wait to see. This is the best time of year for college football. I can't wait to see what happens next Saturday, and we'll see. Maybe we'll have some more. We'll have some more craziness.
I mean, hey, if Bama beats Georgia, I think that's going to be pretty interesting. It'll be interesting Sunday when they do the selections at Sunday at noon. Yeah, that'll be an interesting next Sunday at noon.
Yeah, I mean, we could have a playoff with no Alabama, no Ohio State, obviously no Clemson, no Oklahoma.
Yeah, so it'd be a totally different,
It's insane. All right, so that's all I had on college football.